Our honeymoon is being paid for by that useless old man, babe. He will not even suspect a thing." Those words came out of my own son Brian's mouth on a Saturday morning 1 hour before his wedding. And you know what hurts the most? He was laughing when he said it. So do me a favor. Listen to this story until the end. And also, share this story with whoever needs to hear it. Later, you can tell me which part of it really touched your heart. And what city are you listening to me from? My name is Arthur Sterling. I am 72 years old, and today I am going to tell you something that changed the way I see the word family forever. Because sometimes, son, the people we love the most are the ones who disappoint us the most. It was Saturday morning, the day of Brian's wedding. I had woken up early, as I always do. At 5:30, I was already up drinking my black coffee in the kitchen, looking out the window while the sun was just starting to light up the streets of Boston. That morning was special. My only son was getting married. After so many years of waiting, I was finally going to see Brian start his own family. I had spent months preparing everything, excited like a kid on Christmas. Brian had slept at home the night before. It was tradition, I told him. The groom cannot see the bride on the day of the wedding before the ceremony. That is how your mother and I did it. He just nodded without much enthusiasm, but I thought it was just the normal nerves of any man before getting married. Jessica, his fiancée, is a very good girl. A dentist, hard-working. She always treats me with affection. From the first time she came to have lunch at the house, I liked her very much. She is one of those women who still respect their elders, who know what family means. When Brian got up that morning, I had already been awake for hours. He came down to the kitchen in his pajamas with that sleepy face he always had since he was a child. "Good morning, Dad." "Good morning, son. Did you sleep well?" "More or less." He was nervous. I made him breakfast. Scrambled eggs, warm toast, crispy bacon, and hash browns, just the way he likes them. I wanted that special day to start perfectly for him. While he ate breakfast, Brian was quiet. I thought it was normal that all grooms get like that before the ceremony. I asked him some questions about the preparations, about whether he had forgotten anything important. He answered with one-word answers. His head seemed to be somewhere else. "Is everything good with the guests?" I asked him. "Yes, Dad, everything is under control." "And the suit, do you have it ready?" "Yes, it's upstairs." Dry conversation. But I didn't want to pressure him. It was his day. He had the right to be nervous. After breakfast, Brian went up to his room to shower and start getting ready. The ceremony was at 3 in the afternoon at St. Paul's Church, the same place where I got married 45 years ago to Catherine, who, may she rest in peace. I stayed in the living room trying to watch television, but my mind was racing, thinking about everything that was going to happen that day. The ceremony, the party, seeing my son happy next to a good woman. After so many years alone after Catherine left, I was finally going to have a complete family again. It was about 10 in the morning when I heard Brian talking on the phone in his room. His voice sounded loud, cheerful, very different from how he had been with me during breakfast. I thought he would be with a friend fixing last-minute details, but something in his tone caught my attention. He sounded, I don't know how to explain it, like he was bragging, like he was mocking someone. It was not the voice of a nervous man before his wedding. It was something else. I got up from the armchair and walked toward the stairs. It was not my intention to eavesdrop, but Brian's voice could be heard very clearly from the second floor. He was speaking in English, but in that tone young people use when they think no one is listening. "No, babe, I tell you, everything is already fixed," he was saying. "The old man already paid for everything. 5-star hotel, meals, tours, all inclusive. We only bought the plane tickets, and that is it." He laughed a laugh that I had never heard from him before, a laugh that froze my blood. "I swear, it is that easy, Jessica. Our entire honeymoon is going to be paid for by that useless old man, and he is not even going to suspect a thing." Since I was a kid, I have handled the poor guy like this. I make him believe I am the perfect son, and he takes out his wallet without asking. The world became small to me in that moment. My legs started to tremble. I held on to the banister of the stairs so I would not fall. "What do you mean, do I feel bad?" Brian continued saying. "Bad about what? The man lives alone in that big house. He has nothing to spend his money on. Better that it serves us right. Besides, that is what parents are for, to support their children. He brought it on himself for spoiling me so much." Another laugh, louder, more cruel. No, babe. He's not going to notice anything. You'll see that when we get back from Maui, we are going to tell him how incredible everything was. We're going to show him photos, and the poor guy is going to get emotional thinking he made us happy. It's a piece of cake. I stood there frozen, holding onto the banister, feeling like something was breaking inside me. Something I had been building for 37 years. Something I thought was unbreakable. "You ask if I love him," I heard Brian say. "Oh, Jessica, don't be dramatic. Of course I love him. He is my dad. But that doesn't take away from the fact that he is a naive old man who lets himself be handled easily. As long as he is happy, believing he is the best dad in the world, we live comfortably. It's a mutual benefit." Silence. Brian was listening to what Jessica was saying on the other side of the line. "No, babe," he continued. "You do not have to feel bad. He is happy like this. He likes feeling useful. He likes being the generous dad. If we did not give him that opportunity, he would probably even feel sad. Deep down, we are doing him a favor." I could not move. I could not breathe. Well, 37 years of being a father, 37 years of sacrifices, of working hard to give him the best, of feeling proud of my son. And this was what he thought of me? A useless old man, a naive old man, an old man who lets himself be handled easily. "Hey, babe," Brian said. "I have to hang up now. In an hour, the photographer is coming and I still have to shower. But relax, everything is going to turn out perfectly." The useless old man already took care of everything. He hung up the phone. I stayed there, standing at the foot of the stairs, feeling like the floor was moving beneath my feet. In less than 5 minutes, everything I thought I knew about my son had changed forever. But you know what, son? In that moment, something also woke up in me. Something that had been asleep for many years. Something Brian had never known about his father. Because if there is something I learned in 42 years working at the bank, it is that nobody, absolutely nobody, should underestimate Arthur Sterling. And my son was about to learn that the hard way. I stood there for I do not know how many minutes trying to process what I had just heard. Brian's words kept bouncing around in my head like ping-pong balls. Useless old man. Lets himself be handled easily. A piece of cake. Do you know what is the most painful part of all this? It was not just the betrayal. It was realizing that maybe Brian was right. Maybe I had let myself be handled easily during all these years. I walked slowly up to my room. I closed the door. And I sat on the bed I shared with Catherine for so many years. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, not from sadness, from rage. A rage I had not felt in decades. I heard the water running in Brian's bathroom. He was showering, preparing for his big day, probably singing happy, thinking about how he had fooled his useless old father once again. I grabbed the phone from my nightstand. I had to make a call. But first, I needed to think things through properly. I was not going to act on impulse like a boy. I was going to be smart, strategic. You see, for 42 years, I worked at the National Bank. I started from the bottom as a mailroom clerk, but I made it to regional vice president. Do you know how you get to that position, son? Not just with good intentions. You get there by being shrewd, by knowing how to read people, by knowing when someone is playing you for a fool. And I had been blind, completely blind. I thought about all those years, all the times Brian came home with an emergency, the car that broke down and needed an expensive repair, the training courses that were going to open many doors but that I had to pay for, the outings with friends where he always forgot his wallet. Dad, can you lend me $1,000? I promise next payday I will pay you back. Dad, I got a flat tire and the mechanic says I need 2 new ones. Dad, the boss invited me to dinner and I cannot look bad. Can you give me money for the bill? And I, like an idiot, always taking out my wallet, always believing it was bad luck, that they were real emergencies, that my son just needed a little help to get ahead. But they were not emergencies. It was his way of life, his way of seeing his own father. The water in the bathroom turned off. Brian had finished showering. Soon he would come down. He would ask me if everything was okay. He would give me some fake hug. Maybe he would even say, "Thank you for everything, Dad," with that smile that I now understood was completely false. I dialed the number I had saved in my notebook, a number I had not used in months but knew by heart. The Four Seasons Resort, Maui. How can I help you? This is Arthur Sterling speaking. I have a reservation for next week under the name Brian Sterling. One moment, sir, let me look for it. Yes, here it is. Presidential suite for 7 nights, all inclusive. How may I assist you? I need to cancel that reservation. There was a pause on the other line. Cancel, sir, but the reservation is paid in full. It is a shame to cancel with such short notice. It does not matter. Cancel everything. The suite, the spa services I booked for the lady, the tours, the special dinners, everything. Mr. Sterling, I must inform you that due to hotel policy, canceling with less than 48 hours notice means we cannot refund the money. I understand perfectly. I do not want a refund. I just want the cancellation. Another longer pause. Are you sure, sir? We are talking about a considerable amount. I am completely sure. Cancel everything right now. Very well, sir. I am proceeding with the cancellation. May I ask the reason? It is for our internal records. Let us say there was an unexpected change of plans. I hung up the phone. First call made, but it was not the only one I had to make. I looked in my notebook for the number of the travel agency where I had reserved the special tours. The catamaran tour at sunset, the private island visit with a guide, the romantic dinner at the waterfront restaurant. Maui Luxury Experiences. Good morning, this is Arthur Sterling. I have several reservations for next week that I need to cancel. While I explained what I wanted to cancel, I heard Brian's footsteps coming down the stairs. He was whistling a song. Whistling, as if it were the happiest day of his life. Dad, everything okay? He shouted to me from downstairs. Everything is perfect, son, I answered him. Just making some work calls. Lie, just like the lies he had been telling me for years. I finished canceling the tours. Then I called the Ocean View restaurant where I had made special reservations for 3 nights. I canceled everything. I called the hotel spa where I had booked couple treatments for Brian and Jessica. I canceled everything. I called the dive shop where I had paid in advance for private lessons for both of them. I canceled everything. With every call I made, I felt as if I was taking a blindfold off my eyes, as if I was waking up from a dream that had lasted 37 years. Brian came up to look for me. Dad, are you coming to have some more breakfast? I made you fresh coffee. I looked at him. There was my son, the boy I had raised with so much love, offering me coffee with that smile that I now knew was a lie. He was wearing a white t-shirt and jeans, his hair still damp from the shower. He looked happy, relaxed, without the slightest idea of what had just happened. In a moment, son, I will finish these calls, and we will go together. Everything okay? You look kind of serious. Everything is perfect. Just things from the old job, loose ends that remained. Ah. Brian nodded and went back down. I stayed there sitting, watching how my son walked away without knowing that his paradisiacal honeymoon had just turned into a nightmare. But I was not finished yet. I grabbed the phone again and dialed another number. This was the most important one of all. United Airlines, how can I help you? I need information about a flight. The passengers are Brian Sterling and Jessica Carter. Flight on Sunday morning from Boston to Maui. Ah, one moment. Yes, here appears the reservation. Are you one of the passengers? I am Brian's father. He asked me to check the details of the flight. It was a lie, but I needed that information. The passengers have a Sunday flight at 8:30 a.m. with arrival in Maui around noon local time. Is there any change you need to make? No. For now, no, just confirming the times. I hung up and stayed thinking. Brian and Jessica would arrive in Maui on Sunday around noon. They would go directly to the hotel, excited, carrying their suitcases, imagining the perfect week that awaited them. And they were going to get the surprise of their lives. I looked at the clock. It was 11 in the morning. In 4 hours, Brian would be getting married, believing he had his father eating out of his hand, believing he had won once again. But in less than 24 hours, when he was standing at the front desk of that hotel in Maui, he was going to realize who Arthur Sterling really was, and that nobody, absolutely nobody, played this useless old man for a fool. Not even his own son. I went down to the kitchen where Brian was waiting for me with a steaming cup of coffee. He had put on a light blue shirt and looked, I do not know how to explain it to you, calm, like someone who has everything under control. Are you done with the calls, Dad? Yes, son. Everything is all settled. And I was not lying. Everything had been perfectly settled. Brian poured himself more coffee and sat in front of me at the kitchen table. The same table where he had eaten breakfast since he was a child, where Catherine prepared his favorite meals, where I helped him with school homework. Dad, he said to me, I wanted to talk to you about something. My heart sped up a little. Could it be possible that he was going to confess to me what he had said on the phone? That he had even a tiny bit of conscience? Tell me, Brian. I wanted to thank you for everything you have done for us, for the gift of the honeymoon, for all your support during these months of preparations. He looked me straight in the eyes. And you know what was the most impressive thing of all? That he seemed sincere. Completely sincere, as if he really felt gratitude. It is my obligation, son. You are my only child. No, Dad. It is not an obligation, it is love. And Jessica and I value it very much. We know you spent a fortune on that trip. A fortune. He was right about that. 2 full years of my pension had gone into that reservation. 2 years of working from 16 to 58. 2 years of getting up at 5 in the morning, of putting up with grumpy bosses, of counting every dollar to be able to save something. It gives me much joy to be able to do this for you, I told him. And in that moment, something strange happened. For a second, I remembered the real emotion I had felt when I made those reservations. The genuine excitement of giving something special to my son. Jessica is super excited, Brian continued. Last night, she could not sleep from the excitement. She says she has never been to such a luxurious place. Jessica. The poor girl had no idea what her future husband had said about me that morning. She did seem to genuinely appreciate the gift. She is a good girl, Brian. Take care of her. Of course, Dad. I love her very much. We stayed in silence for a moment, drinking coffee. And in that silence, I thought about all the times we had eaten breakfast like this. Father and son, talking quietly in the kitchen. The first time Brian brought me his grades from school, proud because he had gotten straight A's. I was so happy I bought him a new bicycle. The time he arrived crying because a girl in his class did not want to be his girlfriend at the school dance. Catherine made him hot chocolate, and I explained to him that there would be other girls. The day he graduated from college. He arrived home with his degree, excited, and said to me, "Dad, all this is thanks to you. I never lacked anything to study." That night I cried with joy in my room. At what moment had all that been lost? When had my son stopped seeing me as his father to see me as his personal bank? "Dad, are you okay? You look thoughtful." "I am fine, son. Just remembering things." "Like what?" "Your childhood."
When you were little and told me you wanted to be like me when you grew up?
Brian smiled, a smile that seemed genuine. "I still want to be like you, Dad. You are a great man." Those words hurt me more than the ones I had heard on the phone, because in that moment, seeing him sitting there talking to me with affection, I remembered the boy he had been, the boy who ran to hug me when I arrived from work, the young man who introduced me to his first girlfriends with pride. And I asked myself, what had happened? At what moment had it become this? "Brian," I said to him, "do you think I have been a good father?" The question surprised him. He stayed thinking a moment before answering. "Of course. Yes, Dad. The best father anyone could have. You have always been there for me. You have always given me everything I have needed." "Everything you have needed?" "Yes. Education, home, food, emotional support. Even when I was already an adult, you have always helped me when I have needed it." There was the key word. Helped. For him, everything I did was help, as if it were my obligation to support him all his life. "And you? What have you done for me, Brian?" The question disconcerted him. I could see in his eyes that he did not know what to answer. Well, Dad, I try to be a good son, to visit you, to include you in my life." "When was the last time you visited me without needing something?" Silence. Brian stared at his coffee cup, looking for an answer he could not find. "Dad, I do not understand where you are going with this." "Just curiosity, son. Things an old man thinks." I lied. I knew perfectly well where I wanted to go. I wanted to see if Brian was capable of recognizing even a little bit that our relationship had been completely one-sided for years. Brian looked at his watch. "Hey, Dad, it's already 12. In an hour, the photographers arrive for the photos of the groom. Do you think I should go get ready?" "Of course. Go get ready." He got up from the table and gave me a hug, a strong hug, one of those that seem sincere. "Thanks for everything, Dad. Seriously, I do not know what I would do without you." He went up the stairs whistling again, and I stayed there sitting with those last words bouncing in my head. I do not know what I would do without you. Well, Brian, very soon you are going to find out. I got up and washed the cups. Then I went up to my room and took out my suit from the closet, a dark gray suit that I had sent to be tailored especially for the wedding. I wanted to look impeccable in the photos. I wanted my son to feel proud of his father. What irony. While I changed clothes, I kept hearing Brian moving in his room, preparing for what he thought would be the happiest day of his life. And technically it was going to be, because that day he was going to marry a good woman who loved him for real. But it was also going to be the day he would discover that his father was not the useless old man he thought. I looked at myself in the mirror. 72 years. White hair, some wrinkles, but a straight back and a firm gaze. For decades, this had been the face of a man who let himself be manipulated by paternal love. But today, for the first time in years, it was the face of a man who had recovered his dignity. And Brian was about to meet that man. At 1 in the afternoon, the photographers arrived. 2 young guys with professional cameras and lots of energy. Brian came down dressed in his pearl gray suit, silver tie, black shoes, well polished. He looked handsome, elegant, like a groom should look on his wedding day. "Very good," Mr. Sterling shouted, one of the photographers. "Ready for the most important photos of your life." Brian smiled for the cameras. That perfect smile he had learned to use since he was a child when he wanted something from me. They asked me to join for some father and son photos. We stood in the living room next to the portrait of Catherine that hangs on the main wall. Perfect, Mr. Sterling. Put your hand on your son's shoulder. Like that. Now both of you smile. Click, click, click. Beautiful photo. You can tell the affection between you two. If the photographer knew what I had heard that morning, he would not have said that. They kept taking photos all over the house, Brian posing on the stairs in the entrance, in the garden. In every photo, he looked happy, excited, like a man who was living the best day of his life. And he probably was living it. After all, he was marrying a woman who loved him. He was going to have a honeymoon that he thought would be spectacular. And he had fooled his useless old father once again. "Mr. Sterling," the photographer, said to me, "how does it feel to see your son getting married?" "It is very emotional," I answered. "Brian has been the joy of my life since he was born," and I was not lying. Until that morning, he had been exactly that. "And is he excited for the honeymoon?" He told us they are going to Maui. "Oh, very excited. I hope it is an unforgettable trip for them." Brian looked at me with that smile of his, thinking I was still the same idiot as always. "My dad is the best in the world," he told the photographer. "Without him, this wedding would not have been possible." More photos, more fake smiles, more acting. At 2:30, the photographers packed their equipment. "We will see you at the church, Mr. Sterling. We are going to arrive early to capture the guests arriving." They left. The house remained in silence again. Brian poured himself a glass of water and sat in the armchair in the living room. "Dad, are you ready yet?" "Almost. I just need my tie." "Nervous? Should I be?" Brian laughed. "No, Dad. Everything is going to turn out perfectly." Perfect. What an interesting word. I went up to my room to finish getting ready. I put on the navy blue tie I had bought especially for the occasion. I combed my white hair back. I put on a little cologne that Catherine used to buy me. I wanted to look good in the photos. But above all, I wanted to keep my dignity during the whole ceremony. Because it was going to be difficult. It was going to be very difficult to be standing there watching my son exchange vows of love and honesty, knowing what he really thought of me. While I adjusted my tie in front of the mirror, I thought about Catherine. What would she have done in my place? Would she have confronted Brian directly? Would she have canceled everything like I did? Catherine was more diplomatic than me. She always found gentle ways to correct Brian when he behaved badly. But this was different. This was not a child's prank. It was calculated adult cruelty. I went down and found Brian checking his phone. "Everything good, son?" "Yes, Dad. Just seeing some messages from friends who already arrived at the church. And Jessica, how is she?" "Nervous, but excited. Her mom says she looks beautiful in the dress." Jessica, the poor girl who was getting married without knowing the kind of man her boyfriend was. A part of me wanted to protect her, to warn her somehow, but another part knew it was not my place. Some lessons everyone has to learn for themselves. Brian. I said to him, "I want to ask you something before we leave for the church." "Tell me, Dad." "Do you think Jessica loves you for who you are or for what you can give her?" The question threw him off. I could see in his face that he did not expect it. "Well, of course she loves me for who I am, Dad. Why do you ask me that?" "Just curiosity. It's a question I ask myself sometimes about relationships. Jessica is not a gold digger, if that's what you're insinuating. She has her own career, her own money. She does not need anything from me. What irony. Brian defending Jessica from being a gold digger when he himself was exactly that with me. I am very glad to hear that, son. Relationships should be based on genuine love, not on convenience. Brian nodded, not catching the irony of my words. Exactly, Dad. True love is when you love someone without expecting anything in return. I had to control myself not to laugh, or not to cry. I was not sure which of the two emotions was stronger in that moment. Is it time to go? I asked. Brian looked at his watch. Yes, we better get going. Saturday traffic can be heavy. We left the house together. Brian locked the door and we walked toward my car, a 2018 Chevy Malibu that I had bought when I retired. It is not luxurious, but it is comfortable and reliable. During the drive to the church, Brian was quiet, looking out the window. I drove slowly, enjoying perhaps the last moments of tranquility before the ceremony. Dad, he said to me suddenly, do you ever regret anything in your life? Another unexpected question. Of course, son. We all regret something. What do you regret? I thought well about my answer. I regret not having been stricter with you when you were young, for having given you everything so easily. I think I did not do you any favors. Brian stayed quiet for a moment. Do you think you spoiled me? What do you think? I don't know. I've never really stopped to think about it. We arrived at St. Paul's Church. There were already several cars parked outside. The guests were starting to arrive. Families dressed elegantly, friends of Brian, co-workers of Jessica. I parked the car and we sat for a moment. Brian, I told him, I want you to know that whatever happens in life, you are always going to be my son. That is never going to change. He looked at me strangely. Dad, why do you say that? You talk as if something bad is going to happen. Nothing bad is going to happen, son. It is just that one never knows what the future brings. And I wanted you to know it. We got out of the car and walked toward the entrance of the church. The same church where I married Catherine 45 years ago. The same church where we had baptized Brian when he was a baby. The guests greeted us, congratulated us, told us how exciting the day was. Brian received all the comments with that smile of his, that perfect acting. And I smiled too because I knew something that no one else in that church knew. In less than 24 hours, when Brian was standing at the front desk of a hotel in Maui without a reservation, without a presidential suite, without romantic tours, without special dinners, he was finally going to understand who his father really was. He was going to understand that Arthur Sterling was not a useless old man. He was a man who had waited 37 years to teach him a lesson he was never going to forget. We entered St. Paul's Church, and the scent of fresh flowers hit me immediately. Jessica had chosen white roses and lilies to decorate the altar, the same altar where I had sworn eternal love to Catherine decades ago. The church filled up little by little. I recognized several families from the neighborhood, friends of mine from the bank who had known Brian since he was a child, co-workers of his, all smiling, all excited to witness what they thought would be a celebration of true love. Mr. Sterling greeted Mrs. Higgins, my neighbor of a lifetime. What a beautiful day. Brian looks very handsome. Thank you, Mrs. Higgins. Yes, he is very excited. And how do you feel, your only son, getting married? Very proud. I lied. Very proud of him. Brian walked away to greet his friends who had arrived. I saw him hugging them, laughing, receiving pats on the back. The perfect groom on his perfect day. I sat in the first pew on the right side, as corresponds to the father of the groom. From there, I could see everything: the guests arriving, the floral arrangements, the altar where my son would exchange vows he promised to keep. At 2:45, Jessica's family arrived. Her mother, Nancy, a sleek, elegant woman of about 50. Her father, Bill, a public accountant, a serious but kind man. And her 2 younger sisters, dressed in pink as bridesmaids. Nancy approached to greet me.
"Arthur, what joy. Finally, our children are going to be family."
"It is an honor, Nancy. Jessica is an exceptional girl."
"And Brian, too. You can tell you raised him very well. He is a hard-working, responsible young man."
If she knew what I had heard that morning. "We did what we could, my wife and I answered. May she rest in peace, Catherine. I am sure that from heaven she is very happy seeing this moment." I stayed thinking about that. Would Catherine be happy? Or would she be as disappointed as I was in what our son had become? At 3:00 sharp, the music started playing. Reverend Thomas, who had officiated my wedding and baptized Brian, appeared at the altar dressed in his white vestments. Brian walked toward the altar accompanied by his best man, Javier, his best friend since high school. He stood on the right side, adjusting his tie nervously. For the first time in the day, I saw him genuinely nervous. Maybe because he knew that in a few minutes he would be making solemn promises before God. Promises of honesty, fidelity, respect. Words that sounded strange coming from someone who that same morning had called his own father a useless old man. The music changed. It was the moment for the entrance of the bride. The doors of the church opened and Jessica appeared on Bill's arm. She wore a simple but elegant white dress, a long veil that trailed slightly, and in her hands a bouquet of white roses. She looked beautiful, radiant, like a woman should look on her wedding day. The whole church stood up. She walked slowly down the central aisle, smiling with tears of happiness in her eyes. When she arrived at the altar, Bill gave her a kiss on the forehead and put her hand in Brian's. "Take care of her, my son," Bill whispered to Brian. "With my life," Brian answered. And in that moment, seeing them standing there together, so young, so full of hope, I felt a stab in my chest. Not of regret for what I had done, but of sadness for what Brian had lost without realizing it. He had lost the opportunity to have a genuine relationship with his father. He had exchanged sincere love for calculated manipulation, and the worst of all was that he did not even realize it. Reverend Thomas began the ceremony. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to celebrate the union in marriage of Brian and Jessica." While the priest spoke, I watched my son. He looked happy, excited, totally focused on Jessica. In that moment, he seemed like the good boy he had been as a child. "Marriage is a sacred institution," continued Reverend Thomas, "based on love, mutual respect, honesty, and trust." Honesty. What a powerful word. "Brian," said the priest, "do you promise to love Jessica in sickness and in health, in wealth and in poverty, in good times and in bad, until death do you part?" "Yes, I promise," Brian answered with a firm voice. "Jessica, do you promise to love Brian in sickness and in health, in wealth and in poverty, in good times and in bad, until death do you part?" "Yes, I promise," Jessica answered with her voice broken by emotion. They exchanged rings. Brian placed the ring on Jessica with trembling hands. She did the same, smiling through tears. "What God has joined, let no man put asunder," declared Reverend Thomas. "You may kiss the bride." Brian lifted Jessica's veil and kissed her gently. The whole church erupted in applause. The newlyweds hugged, radiant with happiness. In that moment, Brian looked toward where I was sitting. He smiled at me and gave me a thumbs up. His smile was genuine, full of joy. For a second, I almost forgot what I had heard that morning. But only for a second. After the ceremony, we all went out to the church atrium for family photos. The photographers organized different groups, the bride and groom alone with his family, with her family, with all the guests. Mr. Sterling, one of the photographers, called me. "We need a photo of you with the couple." I stood between Brian and Jessica. Brian put his arm around my shoulders. "Thanks for everything, Dad," he whispered in my ear. "Without you, none of this would have been possible." "Click, click, click. Perfect. A very united family," commented the photographer. United. What irony. After the photos, people started dispersing to go to the reception hall. Brian and Jessica got into a car decorated with flowers that would take them to the hotel where the party would be. "Dad," Brian told me before getting into the car. "See you at the hotel, and again, thanks for everything." Seriously, I do not know how to thank you. You do not have to thank me for anything, son. Just be happy. I am going to be, I promise you. The car drove away amidst honking and shouts of joy. The other guests started walking toward their cars to follow the caravan. I stayed standing there for a moment, watching my newly married son's car drive away. In a few hours, Brian and Jessica would be on their first night as husband and wife. Tomorrow, early, they would take the plane to Maui, excited to start their dream honeymoon. And tomorrow at noon, when they arrived at the hotel, they would discover the first real lesson that Arthur Sterling was going to teach his son. The lesson that actions have consequences. The lesson that words hurt. And the lesson that this useless old man had been listening the whole time. I got into my car and drove slowly toward the reception hotel. A part of me felt sad for what I had done, but a bigger part felt at peace. For the first time in years, I felt respected, and Brian was about to learn why. The reception was at the Fairmont Copley Plaza, an elegant place, but Brian had insisted he did not want me to spend too much on the party. "With what you already spent on the honeymoon, it is more than enough, Dad," he had told me. How considerate of him. Right. I arrived at the hotel and the hall was already full of guests. There was a string quartet playing in a corner, tables decorated with white flower centerpieces, and a buffet that looked delicious. Brian and Jessica had chosen everything with good taste. I sat at the main table next to Jessica's parents. During dinner, Bill and I talked about work, about the economy, about older men things. It was a pleasant, normal conversation. "Arthur," Bill said to me while we drank a glass of wine, "I wanted to thank you personally for what you did for the kids with the honeymoon trip." "You do not have to thank me for anything, Bill. Brian is my only son. Even so, that gesture speaks very well of you." Jessica was thrilled when she found out. She says she has never been to such a luxurious place. I'm glad she feels happy. Maui is beautiful. My wife and I went a few years ago for our anniversary. Do you know it? No, I have never been, but from what I researched, the hotel where they are going to stay is one of the best. I lied. They were not going to be at any hotel anymore. During dinner, Brian came to our table several times. Each time he thanked me again. He introduced me to guests I did not know, like my dad, the best man in the world, and included me in all the conversations. It was the perfect performance. The grateful, affectionate son who respected his father. "Dad," he said to me in one of those moments, "I want you to know that when we get back from Maui, Jessica and I want to invite you to dinner to tell you all about the trip." "I would love that, son. And we also want to start coming to the house more often." Jessica says she loves talking to you, that you remind her of her grandfather. The house is always open for you. Thanks, Dad. Seriously. I think now that I am married, I am going to value family more. Value family more. If only he knew that it was already too late for that. The party went on until past 10 at night. There was dancing, more music, the typical waltz of the bride and groom. Brian and Jessica looked radiant, completely in love. When the moment came to cut the cake, Brian asked for a microphone. "I want to thank everyone for joining us on this very special day," he said with his arm around Jessica's waist. "But above all, I want to thank my dad, Arthur Sterling." Everyone turned to look at me. They started to applaud. My dad continued, "Brian, he has been the pillar of my life since I was born. After my mom died, he became father and mother to me. He gave me education, values, unconditional love. And now, to start my marriage, he gifted me the most incredible honeymoon that Jessica and I could have dreamed of." More applause. The people shouted, "Speech, Arthur!" "Without my dad," continued Brian with his voice broken by emotion, "I would not be the man I am today. Everything good I have, I owe to him. Thanks, Dad. I love you." He came over to me and gave me a strong, long hug, a hug that seemed completely sincere. And do you know what was the most confusing thing of all? That in that moment, hugging my son, hearing his words of gratitude, seeing the tears in his eyes, for a second, I doubted if I had done the right thing. For a second, I thought, what if he really loves me? What if those words from the morning were just momentary frustration? What if I am being too hard? But then I remembered his laugh, that cruel laugh when he said, "Useless old man." And I remembered the mocking tone when he said, "It is a piece of cake to handle him." And all my doubts went away. "Thanks, son," I told him when he separated from the hug. "Be very happy." The party ended near midnight. The guests were saying goodbye little by little. Brian and Jessica stayed until the end, thanking every person who left. When only the close family remained, Brian approached me one last time. "Dad, tomorrow we leave very early for the airport. The flight is at 8:30. "I know, son. Have a good trip. Are you coming to see us off?" "If you want, yes." "Of course we want to. Right, babe?" he asked Jessica. "Of course, Dad," Jessica answered, giving me a kiss on the cheek. Without you, this trip would not be possible. If she knew how true that was. "We will pick you up at 6:30, Brian told me, "so we can have breakfast together before we go." "Perfect. I will wait for you." We said goodbye there at the door of the hotel. Brian and Jessica got into a taxi that would take them to his apartment, where they would spend their first night as husband and wife. I drove back home in silence. The city was quiet. There was barely any traffic. During the whole way, I thought about what had just happened. The wedding had been beautiful. Brian had married a good woman. Jessica's family was decent people. Everything had turned out perfect, except for a small detail that Brian would discover in a few hours. I arrived home and sat in the living room, still dressed in my wedding suit. The house was very silent. On the center table were the gifts that some guests had brought for Brian and Jessica. Kitchen appliances, towels, things for the home. I stayed there, sitting, thinking about the day that had passed, the photos, the ceremony, Brian's thanks, the hugs, the words of love. And I thought about how strange life is, how someone can act with so much affection in public and speak with so much contempt in private. At 1 a.m, my phone rang. It was a text from Brian. "Dad, thanks for the most beautiful day of my life. I love you very much. See you in a few hours for breakfast." I read the message 3 times, and each time I read it, it confirmed to me more that I had made the right decision. Because if Brian really loved me, as he said, he would never have spoken about me that way. If he really respected me, he would never have called me a useless old man. If he really valued everything I had done for him, he would never have said it was a piece of cake to manipulate me. I changed clothes, brushed my teeth, and went to bed. But I could not sleep immediately. My mind kept spinning, thinking about everything that had happened and everything that was going to happen. In a few hours, Brian and Jessica would be at the airport, excited for their trip. In a few more hours, they would be flying toward Maui, imagining the perfect week that awaited them. And at noon, when they arrived at the hotel and approached the reception counter to check in, they would hear the words that would change everything. "I am very sorry, Mr. Sterling, but we do not have any reservation under your name." That was going to be the first lesson, but it was not going to be the last. I woke up at 5 in the morning without needing an alarm clock. During the whole night, I had had a restless sleep thinking about what was going to happen that Sunday. I got up, showered, dressed in comfortable clothes, made extra strong coffee. I was going to need all my energy for what was coming. At 6:15, my phone rang. "Good morning, Dad," it was Brian's cheerful voice. "We are already ready. We will pick you up in 15 minutes. "I will wait for you, son." "Did you eat breakfast yet?" "No, we were waiting for you to eat breakfast together." "Perfect. Jessica wants to go to that diner that is on the way to the airport, the one that has those pancakes I like so much." "Whatever you want." At 6:30 sharp, they arrived. Brian honked from outside. I left the house, locked the door, and got into the back seat of his car. "Good morning, Dad." Jessica greeted me from the passenger seat. She looked radiant in a yellow blouse and jeans. "Did you sleep well?" "Very well, my dear. And you too? How did you feel on your first night as married couple?" Brian laughed. "Strange, right, babe? Waking up knowing we are already husband and wife?" "Beautiful," answered Jessica, taking his hand. "I cannot believe we are already married." We drove toward the Bluebird Diner, a simple place but with delicious food that was on the way to the airport. During the ride, Brian and Jessica did not stop talking about their trip. "Do you know what excites me the most, Dad?" Jessica said to me, turning around. "The hotel spa. Brian told me that you booked treatments for both of us?" "Yes, my dear. I thought that after all the stress of the wedding, it would be good for you to relax." "What a beautiful detail. I have never had a professional massage." "You are going to love it, babe," Brian told her. "And the hotel restaurants look incredible in the photos. We are going to eat like kings." And the catamaran ride, added Jessica. "Oh, Dad, really, you did not have to spend so much. It is the most beautiful wedding gift anyone could ask for," said Brian, looking at me through the rearview mirror. "Seriously, Dad, I do not know how to thank you." He was going to find out very soon. We arrived at the diner and asked for a table near the window. Brian ordered blueberry pancakes with extra syrup. Jessica got scrambled eggs with bacon, and I just had coffee with toast. I was not very hungry. "Nervous about the flight, Dad?" Brian asked me. "Why would I be nervous?" "I don't know. Sometimes older people get scared when their children travel by plane." "No, son. I just want you to be happy." "We are going to be. I promise you, we are going to enjoy every minute of this trip." Jessica took out her phone and showed me photos of the hotel she had found on the internet. "Look, Dad, how beautiful it looks. The pools, the beaches, the restaurants. It is like a paradise."
It looks very pretty, my dear.
Brian told me the suite you reserved has an ocean view. Is it true?
I hope so. I lied.
Oh, how exciting. I am going to take millions of photos to show you when we get back. During the whole breakfast, they kept talking about the trip. Plans for every day, places they wanted to visit, restaurants where they wanted to dine. They had everything calculated, minute by minute, and I listened to them, nodding, smiling, pretending that everything was going to turn out as they expected. "What time do you think we arrive at the hotel, babe?" Jessica asked Brian. "The flight arrives at 11:45. With the transfer to the hotel, I calculate we will be there at noon. Perfect for lunch, and then going to the beach." Noon, exactly when they were going to get the surprise of their lives. We finished breakfast and drove toward the airport. During the way, Brian put on happy music and sang along with Jessica. They looked like the happiest couple in the world. At the airport, I helped them take down the suitcases from the car. 2 big suitcases full of beach clothes, swimsuits, light dresses for the romantic dinners they thought they were going to have. "Well, Dad," Brian said to me at the airport door, "this is the moment of goodbye. Have a very good trip, guys." Jessica hugged me first. "Thanks for everything, Dad, really. You are an angel. Take care of yourself, my dear, and take care of this boy." "Of course." Then Brian hugged me, a long, strong hug. "Dad, I have no words to thank you for everything you have done for me. Not just this trip, but my whole life. You are the best father anyone could have." "Just be happy, Brian. That is the only thing I want. I'm going to do it. I promise you that when we return, I'm going to be a better son. I'm going to visit you more. I'm going to include you more in my life." It was about time I matured. How curious that he said that precisely now. "I love you, Dad." "And I love you too, son." He separated from the hug and took the suitcases. "See you in a week. We are going to bring you something nice from Maui. I do not need anything, just that you return safely." They entered the airport carrying their suitcases, turning to wave at me. I watched them walk away until they disappeared among the crowd of travelers. I got into my car and drove back home. It was 8 in the morning. Their flight left at 8:30. In a few hours, they would be landing. In 4 hours, they would be standing at the reception of the Four Seasons Resort with their suitcases, their smiles, and their expectations of a perfect week. And the employee would tell them, "I am very sorry, but no reservation appears under the name Brian Sterling." I arrived home and made myself another coffee. I sat in the living room in the same armchair where I had been sitting the day before when I heard Brian talking on the phone. I looked at the clock. 8:45. Their plane had already taken off. There was no turning back. During the next few hours, I tried to watch television, read the newspaper, do anything to distract myself. But my mind kept calculating the times. 9:30. They are already in the air. 10:30. They have been flying for 2 hours. 11:30. They must be starting the descent. At 12 o'clock sharp, my phone rang. It was an unknown number with a Hawaii area code. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hello?" "Dad." It was Brian's voice, but it sounded different, confused, worried. "Hello, son. Did you arrive safely?" "Yes, Dad, but..." "Is there a problem?" "What kind of problem?" "We are at the hotel, but..." "I do not know how to explain to you. They say there is no reservation under our name." I paused as if I were surprised. "What do you mean there is no reservation? That is impossible." "That is exactly what I told the man at the reception. I showed him the confirmation numbers you gave me, but he says everything was canceled yesterday." "Canceled? By whom?" "I do not know, Dad." "Did you cancel anything?" Another pause longer. "Brian," I said to him with a very calm voice, "I need to ask you something." "What thing, Dad?" "You really believed I was not going to find out what you said yesterday morning?" Silence, total on the other side of the line. "Dad, I do not understand what you were talking about." "You do not understand? Seriously, you do not understand?" More silence. "Our honeymoon is going to be paid for by that useless old man." Does that phrase sound familiar to you, Brian? The silence on the other side of the line lasted almost a full minute. I could hear the background noise of the hotel lobby, voices of other guests, ambient music, but Brian said nothing. I imagine he was standing there with the phone in his hand, with Jessica by his side, wondering what was happening, trying to process what he had just heard. "Dad?" Finally, he spoke with a broken voice. I do not know what you are talking about. Seriously, Brian, are you going to keep lying? Even now that you know, I heard you. Another silence. Shorter this time. Dad, I think there is a confusion. There is no confusion whatsoever, son. I heard you perfectly when you told Jessica that the useless old man was going to pay for everything and that he was not even going to suspect a thing. I heard you when you said it was a piece of cake to handle me. I heard you when you laughed at me. Dad, please, do you know what hurts me the most, Brian? It is not that you called me a useless old man. It is not that you said it was easy to manipulate me. What hurts me the most is that for 37 years I believed I had a son who loved me. And it turns out I only had a son who used me. That is not true, Dad. I do love you. You love me. Is this how you love Brian? Mocking the people you love, calling them useless behind their backs? I heard someone else take the phone. It was Jessica's voice. Dad, this is Jessica. I do not understand what is happening. Brian is very upset and does not want to explain to me. Jessica, my dear, your husband can explain perfectly to you what is happening. Ask him what he said about me yesterday morning when he was talking to you on the phone. Brian, what is your dad talking about? I heard voices in the background as if Brian was whispering something to Jessica. Dad? Jessica came back to the phone, but now her voice sounded different, colder. Did you cancel our honeymoon because of a private conversation between Brian and me? Jessica, I did not cancel anything because of a private conversation. I canceled everything because of a lack of respect that I am not willing to tolerate. But Dad, we do not have money to pay for a hotel here. We spent all our savings on the wedding and the plane tickets. I know, my dear, and I am very sorry for you because you are not to blame for anything, but your husband is. Brian took the phone back. Dad, it is okay. I got the message. But Jessica does not have to pay for something I did. Please tell me how we can fix this. Fix what, Brian? The reservation. Tell me what I have to do for you to reactivate the reservation. Nothing can be reactivated, son. Everything is canceled and there is no refund. Everything. Also the tours, the restaurants, everything. But Dad, that cost a fortune. Exactly. And I lost it all because of your mouth. Dad, please, I know I was wrong. I know what I said was very bad, but please think about it well. Are you really going to destroy your only son's honeymoon over some words I said without thinking? Without thinking, Brian. Are you listening to yourself? Calling me a useless old man was not without thinking. Saying it was a piece of cake to manipulate me was not without thinking. Laughing at me was not without thinking. It was exactly what you think of your father. No, it is not what I think of you. Then why did you say it? Why? Why? Because what, Brian? Because I was showing off to Jessica. I wanted her to know I had everything under control, that I had gotten an incredible trip for our honeymoon. Ah, so you used me to show off. How nice. It was not like that. And how was it then? Explain to me, Brian. Explain to me how calling your father a useless old man is a way of showing love. Jessica took the phone back. Dad, please. I know Brian was wrong, but can't you forgive him? We are here in the hotel lobby with the suitcases, not knowing what to do. We do not have money for another hotel. You know what, Jessica? For years, I have forgiven Brian. I have forgiven that he asks me for money every month. I have forgiven that he only visits me when he needs something. I have forgiven that he never asks me how I am, that they never offer to help me with anything. I have forgiven so much that I became exactly what he said, a useless old man who lets himself be handled easily. Dad, it was Brian again. But not anymore, son. I am not going to keep allowing you to disrespect me. I am your father, not your personal bank, and I deserve a little dignity. You are right, Dad. You are absolutely right. I have been a bad son, but please give me a chance to fix it. How are you going to fix it, Brian? I don't know. Whatever you want. Tell me what I have to do. What you have to do is learn to live without Dad solving all your problems. What you have to do is find a way to pay for your own honeymoon. What you have to do is stop seeing your father as your financial emergency plan. But Dad, we don't have money. That is no longer my problem, Brian. That is your problem. You are a married man of 37 years. It is time you act like one. So what are we supposed to do? Do we go back to Boston? Do whatever you want, but do it with your own money. Dad, please. I promise you that when we get back, we will talk. I'm going to show you I can change. Brian, promises no longer interest me. Facts interest me. And the fact is that for 37 years you have seen me as an idiot you can manipulate at your whim. Well, the idiot woke up. You are not an idiot, Dad. You are my father. And I love you. If you loved me, you would never have spoken about me the way you did. It was a mistake. It was not a mistake, Brian. It was your true opinion of me. And you know what? Maybe you were right. Maybe I was a useless old man for many years. But not anymore. What do you want me to do then? I want you to learn to solve your own problems. I want you to learn to value what you have. And I want you to learn that words have consequences. It is okay, Dad. Message received. But please, at least tell me, is there any way we can fix this? Any way you can forgive me? Forgiveness is earned, Brian. It is not asked for. And how do I earn it? That you have to discover by yourself. Because part of the problem is that I have always had to tell you what to do, how to do it, and even pay you to do it. There was another long silence. Dad, Brian said finally with a voice I had not heard from him in years. A scared child's voice. Do you hate me? The question took me by surprise. For a moment, all my anger transformed into sadness. I do not hate you, Brian. I love you. That is why what you said hurts me so much. That is why it hurts me so much to realize that for you, I am just a source of money. You are not just that. Then what else am I to you? When was the last time you visited me without needing something? When was the last time you called me just to know how I was? Silence. Exactly. I continued. You cannot answer because it has not happened. I am going to change that, Dad. I swear. We will see, son. We will see. Dad, Brian told me with a trembling voice, give me one last chance. Please tell me what I can do to fix this. I already told you, Brian. This is not fixed with words. It is fixed with actions. And those actions you have to take alone. But I do not know where to start. Start by solving your honeymoon without my help. Start by acting like the married man you now are. I heard him talking to Jessica in a low voice. I could not understand what they were saying, but it sounded like an argument. Dad, he came back to the phone. Jessica says there are cheaper hotels down the coast, that maybe we can get something that is within our budget. I think that is an excellent idea, son. And the tours you had booked, and the special dinners, all that is also lost. Everything, Brian. Absolutely everything. But Dad, that was a lot of money. It was a lot of money I spent with much love, thinking about making my son happy. And it turns out, my son thinks I am a useless old man. I do not think that anymore. Oh, really? Since when did you change your opinion?
Since you realized you got caught? Since I realized how much I hurt you.
Brian, do you know what is the difference between being sorry for hurting someone and being sorry you got caught hurting someone?
Which one?
That if you were really sorry for hurting me, you never would have hurt me in the first place. But since you are only sorry you got caught, the only thing you regret are the consequences.
There was a long pause. I could hear the murmur of the hotel lobby, the sound of suitcases rolling, people speaking in English.
You are right, Brian finally said. You are absolutely right, Dad. I have been selfish my whole life.
And what are you going to do about it?
I do not know.
You tell me. Brian, are you listening to yourself? Even to change, you want me to tell you how? Do you not realize that is exactly the attitude that has me fed up?
Sorry, Dad.
You are right again. Jessica took the phone again.
Dad, this is Jessica. Brian told me everything that happened. What he said was very wrong, and I understand perfectly why you are angry.
Thank you for understanding, my dear.
But Dad, do you not think Brian already learned the lesson? He is super sorry. He will not stop crying.
Jessica, Brian is not crying because he regrets what he said. He is crying because the free money ran out.
I do not think it is like that, Dad. Seriously, Jessica, tell me one thing. Had Brian ever told you that I give him money constantly? Well, yes, he had told me that you help him when he has emergencies.
Emergencies? Can you count how many emergencies Brian has had in the 2 years you've been together?
Jessica stayed quiet. Think about it well, my dear. How many times has Brian had to ask his dad for money for some emergency? Well, now that I think about it, there have been several times.
Several or many?
Many,
admitted Jessica with a small voice. Exactly. Because for Brian, I am not his dad. I am his ATM.
But Dad, that is going to change.
I am going to make sure it changes. No, Jessica, you are not going to make sure of anything. That is not your responsibility. It is Brian's responsibility to change by himself. Brian took the phone back.
Dad, we found a hotel.
It is simpler, but it is clean and has a pool. We can afford it.
I am very glad, son, really.
Of course.
I am glad you were solving your problems by yourself.
Dad, do you think someday you will forgive me?
Brian, I already forgave you. Forgiveness is not the problem.
Then what is the problem?
The problem is trust. Forgiveness I give, but trust you have to earn.
And how do I earn it?
By showing you really changed. Not with words, but with facts.
What kind of facts?
Brian, there you go again. Do you not realize you are asking me what to do instead of thinking for yourself what you should do?
You're right, Dad. Sorry.
When you get back from Maui, if you really want to regain my trust, you are going to have to show me you can be a real son, not just when you need something. Are you going to give me that opportunity? Brian, I have always given you opportunities. The problem is you have never taken advantage of them. This time is going to be different.
I hope so, son.
For your sake and for the sake of your marriage.
What do you mean?
I mean that Jessica is realizing what you are really like, and I do not think she likes what she is seeing very much.
Jessica. Is she there still?
Yes, here I am, said Jessica. Clearly, she had been listening to the whole conversation.
Babe, please do not judge me for this. I know I behaved badly with my dad, but that does not mean I am going to treat you badly, Brian.
Jessica told him with a voice that sounded different, more mature. If this is how you treat your dad, who is the man who gave you life and has given you everything, how do I know you are not going to treat me the same when it suits you? Because I love you.
You are also supposed to love your dad, and look how you talk about him. Brian stayed quiet. Jessica's right, I said, and it is something you should think about very seriously. Dad, please help me. Tell Jessica I can change.
Brian, are you asking me to help you convince your wife that you are not the person you just proved you are? Yes. No, I do not know. Son, if you want Jessica to trust you, you have to earn that trust yourself, just like with me. I heard someone speaking in the background, probably hotel employees asking if they needed help. Dad, Jessica said to me, we are leaving now for the other hotel, but I want you to know that now I understand many things I did not understand before. Like what, my dear? Like why Brian always has money to go out with his friends but never has money to help me when I need something. Like why he never wants us to go visit you on weekends. Like why he always makes excuses when I suggest we buy you something nice for Father's Day. Jessica, Brian tried to interrupt. No, Brian, let me speak. Your dad is right. You have been taking advantage of him for years, and I had not realized. Babe, please.
Brian, I married you thinking you were a responsible and independent man, but it turns out you are a 37-year-old man who still depends on his dad for everything. Can I change? I hope so, Brian, because if you do not change, our marriage is going to have many problems. I was impressed. Jessica had understood in an hour what had taken me years to accept. Well, guys, I told them, I leave you so you can go to your hotel and fix your situation. Dad, Brian told me, when we get back, can we talk? Of course, son. My house is always open to you. Thanks, Dad, and sorry, seriously. Sorry for everything. I know, Brian. Now show me. I hung up the phone and stayed sitting in my living room in silence, processing everything that had happened. For the first time in years, I felt respected. For the first time in years, I had set boundaries. And for the first time in years, Brian was going to have to face the consequences of his actions.
The question was, would he really learn from this lesson? Or was he just going to wait until I forgot the anger to return to the same old ways? Only time would tell. The following 7 days were the quietest I had in years. No calls from Brian asking for money. No emergencies I had to solve. No excuses I had to believe. Just silence. A silence that at first made me uncomfortable, but little by little I learned to enjoy. On Wednesday of that week, Mrs. Higgins, my neighbor, came to visit me. Arthur, how are the kids in Maui? Did they send you photos yet? They are fine, Mrs. Higgins, enjoying their honeymoon. How beautiful. You can tell Brian has a dad who loves him very much. Not just any father gifts a trip like that. Yes, I told her. But sometimes loving too much can be a mistake. What do you mean? Sometimes when we love our children so much, we give them everything so easily that we do not teach them the value of things. Mrs. Higgins looked at me with curiosity, but I did not explain more. Some lessons everyone has to learn for themselves. On Friday, I received a text message from Brian. It just said, Dad, Maui is beautiful. Thanks for the lesson. I love you. I did not reply. It was still too soon for pretty words. On Sunday afternoon, they arrived back. Brian called me from the airport. Dad, we are already in Boston. Can we stop by the house? Of course. Are you not angry? I am not angry, Brian. I am waiting. Waiting for what? To see if you really learned something or if you just want things to go back to how they were before. An hour later, they arrived at the house. Brian knocked on the door instead of using his key as he always did. A small detail, but significant. I opened the door, and there they were. Brian looked different, more serious, as if he had aged in that week. Jessica also looked different, more mature,
as if she had seen something she did not like very much. "Hi, Dad," Brian said to me. "Hello, son.
How was the trip?"
Different from what we expected, but, well, we learned a lot. I invited them in. They sat in the living room in the same place where they always sat, but this time there was something different in the atmosphere. Dad, Brian said to me, "I want to ask for your forgiveness, not just for what I said on my wedding day, but for everything. For years of taking advantage of you, of treating you as if you were my obligation instead of my blessing." "I'm listening, Brian." "During this week when we had to pay for our own hotel, our own food, our own tours, I realized how much you have given me my whole life, and I realized how little I have given you in return." Jessica spoke too. "Dad, I also want to apologize for not having realized sooner how Brian treated you, for having been part of the problem without knowing it. You two do not owe me any apology, guys, but you do owe me respect. And above all, Brian, you owe respect to yourself." "What do you mean?"
I mean that a 37-year-old man should not need his dad to solve his life. I mean that a husband should not depend on his father-in-law or father to support his family. Brian lowered his head. "You're right, Dad. And that is why I decided something." "What did you decide?" "I decided that I am not going to ask you for money anymore. At all. Not for emergencies, not for anything. I am going to learn to live with what I earn. And if you really have an emergency, then I will look for a loan at the bank or sell something or work extra. But I am not going to bother you anymore." "Brian," I told him, "that is very good. But I want you to understand something." "What?" "It is not just about the money. It is about respect. It is about valuing what you have. It is about understanding that I am not your emergency plan. I am your father." "I understand, Dad." "Do you really understand?" "Yes. And that is why I also decided something else." "What else did you decide?" "I want to start visiting you every Sunday. Not because I need something, but because I want to spend time with you. I want to know you as a person, not just as my source of money." Those words reached my heart. For years I had waited to hear something like that. "And I want to come too," added Jessica. "I want you to teach me how to cook the recipes Catherine liked. I want to hear stories from when Brian was a child. I want to be part of this family for real." "I would love that, my dear Dad," Brian said to me. "I know I cannot erase 37 years of being a bad son in a week, but I want to try. I want to be the son you deserved to have. Brian, you have always been the son I deserved to have. The problem is that I was not the father you needed. I gave you everything so easy that I did not teach you to value anything. Do you forgive me, Dad?" "I already told you I forgive you, son. But now I need you to show me that you really changed." "How?" "With facts, Brian. Only with facts." We stayed talking until late. For the first time in years, Brian asked me how I felt, how I had been during the week, if I needed help with anything in the house. For the first time in years, he seemed genuinely interested in my well-being. Jessica helped me make coffee and told me about the simple hotel where they stayed, about how Brian had to look for cheap restaurants, about how for the first time she saw him calculate every dollar before spending it. "It was good for him, Dad," she told me. "It made him more aware of what things cost." When they left that night, Brian hugged me in a different way. It was not the quick hug of always, but a long hug. One of those that hurt a little because you know they are full of real regret. "Thanks, Dad," he whispered in my ear. "Thanks for teaching me this lesson. I know it hurt you to do it, but
It was necessary.
The following months were different. Brian kept his word. He came every Sunday, sometimes just to talk, sometimes to help me with things around the house.
Jessica also came, and little by little, she became the daughter I never had. He did not ask me for money even once, not even when his car broke down and he had to walk to work for a week while he gathered money for the repair. But the most important thing was not that he stopped asking me for money. The most important thing was that he started treating me like his father, not like his personal bank. And I learned something too. I learned that sometimes to really help the people we love, we have to stop helping them. I learned that true love sometimes hurts, but that pain is necessary to grow. I learned that it is never too late to teach respect, nor to demand dignity. And I learned that this useless old man still had many lessons to teach. 6 months later, Brian called me one day to tell me that he and Jessica had saved enough to go on vacation on their own to Myrtle Beach, a more modest place than Maui, but paid for with their own effort. "Dad," he said to me, "these are going to be our first real vacations, the first ones we pay for ourselves. And how does it feel?" "It feels incredible, Dad. It feels like being a real adult." "And that is why, son, I say it is never too late to teach and never too late to learn." Now tell me, if it were you, what would you have done in my place? And take the opportunity. Tell me, what corner of this world are you listening to me from?